Beloved, let us awaken to a higher truth today. Your supply does not come from the economy. Your wealth does not originate in Wall Street, your job, or the shifting tides of markets. These are but channels, moving instruments, but the true source is eternal, unchanging, and divine. The world will shout at you, look at inflation, look at recession, look at lack, yet the Spirit whispers, look unto me, for I am your supply. The economy may rise and fall, but divine abundance is constant. It does not crash, it does not dry up, it does not disappear. Fear is the language of the world system. Faith is the language of divine supply. When fear grips your heart, you clutch, you hoard, you shrink, and scarcity follows. But when faith fills your heart, you release, you speak words of plenty, and the floodgates of provision open. Remember this, your words are creative. Every time you say, I can't afford it, money is tight, the future looks bleak, you are writing a contract with lack. But when you declare, God is my source, my cup overflows, my needs are already met, you set heaven's law into motion. What you expect is what you experience. Expect loss, and loss comes. Expect abundance, and abundance rushes to meet you. The universe conspires to fulfill your dominant belief, so dare to expect supply in the face of shortage. Dare to expect overflow when the world predicts famine. And here is the paradox: when you give in faith, you never lose. Generosity unlocks the storehouses of heaven. The one who clutches in fear closes the door of blessing. The one who gives freely opens it wide. Gratitude is your golden key. The grateful heart multiplies, the complaining heart diminishes. Each thank you for today's bread paves the way for tomorrow's feast. Trust also calls for obedience. Sometimes divine wisdom tells you to step out, invest in the unexpected, sow in strange fields. Worldly logic may mock, but obedience leads to miraculous provision. Peace is your magnet. While others worry, pace, and panic, you can stand calm, anchored in the eternal source. From that peace comes clarity, ideas, and opportunities. Anxiety repels prosperity, but peace attracts it. So rise above the headlines. Refuse to bow to economic forecasts, fear, based news, and the chorus of doubt. Lift your vision higher. Say with boldness, my source is God, not the economy. My supply is unshakable. My prosperity is eternal. For when you live by the law of spirit, you are never a victim of circumstance. You become a vessel of abundance, a channel of provision, a living testimony that heaven's economy never fails. Stand firm, speak abundance, expect miracles, and watch the doors of supply swing open before you. When we look out at the world, it is easy to assume that our well-being depends entirely on human systems. Jobs, salaries, business opportunities, government benefits, or the strength of the global economy. These appear to be the lifelines that sustain us. Yet this assumption blinds us to a deeper, eternal reality. Every form of provision is only a channel, never the source. Behind the paycheck, behind the promotion, behind the unexpected gift or open door, there stands the invisible source, steady, unshakable, and endlessly abundant. To recognize God as the true source of supply is to step into a new atmosphere of freedom, because you are no longer at the mercy of the headlines or the fluctuations of markets. You are aligned with a fountain that never runs dry. Think for a moment of a tree rooted beside a river. The branches may sway with the wind, the seasons may change, leaves may fall and grow again, but the root that draws from the deep water remains constant. So it is with the soul that acknowledges God as source. The outer forms of supply may change, jobs may come and go, businesses may rise and fall, but the root is planted in an eternal stream. When you live with this awareness, you stop panicking when circumstances shift, because you know the source itself has not moved. You trust that if one channel closes, another will open, and that all channels are but instruments of a boundless reservoir. The human mind, trained by fear, often believes that the economy dictates destiny. If the market rises, hope rises. If the market falls, hope crashes with it. But this roller coaster of emotion is built on illusion. The truth is that markets are external expressions of collective thought, subject to endless change. They are not the ground of your being. The spirit within you, the infinite intelligence that called forth the stars and sustains the sparrow, is your ground. To live by the world's economy is to live in constant anxiety, but to live by divine supply is to walk with assurance even in turbulent times. You understand that your life is not held together by numbers on a chart, but by the law of an abundant universe. When you claim God as your source, you break the chain of limitation. Many people believe that their salary cap is the limit of their provision, that the structure of their industry is the boundary of their wealth, that their background or education defines how much they can receive. These beliefs are cages built by human reasoning. The one who knows God as source refuses to accept such cages, because they understand that infinite supply can flow through any channel, and new channels can appear without warning. Opportunities can be born out of places where logic sees only dead ends. A single idea, a conversation, a door that opens seemingly by chance. All of these are vehicles through which supply can rush when you live in trust. What the mind calls coincidence, the soul knows as provision. This awareness also changes the way you see others. When you imagine that people are your source, you may fall into manipulation, fear of rejection, or resentment when they do not give what you expected. But when you know that God is the source, you can release others from the role of provider. You are free to bless, to give, to serve, without clinging or controlling, because your supply does not depend on their actions. If they give, you rejoice. If they withhold, you rest assured that another channel will appear. No person holds the key to your destiny, for the source is greater than all personalities combined. This truth heals relationships because it removes the strain of dependency and replaces it with freedom. To see God as source is to lift your vision above appearances. You may look at your bank account and see little, but faith knows that the visible is only a shadow of the invisible. The seed in the ground looks small, but within it lies the forest. So it is with the soul anchored in spirit. Outwardly there may be limitation, but inwardly there is an ocean of supply ready to manifest. The mind of fear asks, where will it come from? But the mind of faith answers, it comes from everywhere, for God is in everything. When you hold this perspective, you stop shrinking at obstacles, and instead you anticipate the creative solutions that will unfold. What appears as a closed door may become the very passageway to abundance, for spirit is endlessly resourceful. This truth also transforms your language. If you truly believe God is your source, you cannot continue to speak words of lack. Every declaration of shortage, every complaint about what you do not have, is a denial of the source. Instead, your words must align with abundance. You declare, my needs are met in perfect timing, even when the evidence seems scarce. You proclaim, the supply is here and now, even while the figures say otherwise. Such words are not empty affirmations. They are the vibration that calls forth the reality you believe. They signal to the universe that you are standing in trust, and trust magnetizes supply. The tongue is a rudder steering the ship of your life, and when it points toward abundance, the waters begin to part. Living with God as source cultivates peace in your heart. Instead of being tossed to and fro by fear of layoffs, economic downturns, or rising costs, you stand calm. Peace itself becomes a magnet for provision, because in calmness the mind receives ideas, inspiration, and creative strategies. Anxiety clouds perception. Peace sharpens it. Many lose opportunities simply because they are too afraid to see them. But the one who is at rest in divine supply can spot an open door where others see only a wall. This peace is not passivity, it is powerful readiness, a posture that allows abundance to flow naturally. When you release fear, you make room for provision to enter. To accept God as source also deepens gratitude. Gratitude becomes not just a polite response, but a recognition of the endless flow of supply. You see the food on your table not merely as groceries bought with money, but as a gift from the infinite. You view your home not just as real estate, but as shelter drawn from an unfailing fountain. Each breath, each opportunity, each relationship, you receive as evidence of a source that never fails. And as you give thanks, you amplify the flow. Gratitude is like turning the handle on a faucet. It increases the stream. The more you acknowledge, the more you receive, because recognition multiplies manifestation. Faith in God as source is not blind naivety. It is a higher wisdom. The world says, be realistic, depend on the economy, cling to what you have. Faith says, the economy is only a shadow, and my supply is infinite. I release fear and step into abundance. This does not mean you neglect practical actions. You still work, plan, invest, and make decisions. But you do so without panic, knowing that you are not limited to human channels. You understand that your job, your business, your investments are vessels through which supply flows, but the well itself lies deeper. And when one vessel breaks, another can be formed instantly, because the source is inexhaustible. So each day you rise, you can affirm with boldness, I look not to the economy, nor to people, nor to circumstances for my provision. I look to God, the unfailing source of all supply. The channels may change, but the source remains. I live in abundance, I walk in overflow, and I stand in trust that all I need is provided now. These words, lived out in thought, feeling, and action, lift you above the shifting tides of the world and anchor you in the eternal stream that never runs dry. The world around us is constantly broadcasting messages of shortage. The news proclaims rising prices, failing banks, collapsing markets, and unstable economies. Advertisements whisper that you never have enough, that you must buy more, achieve more, accumulate more to be secure or valuable. Society builds its systems on the assumption of scarcity, limited jobs, limited resources, limited opportunities, limited wealth. This mindset of lack is so pervasive that most people accept it as truth without question. They wake each day fearing they will run out of money, out of time, out of health, out of love. Yet what appears as lack is not ultimate reality, it is illusion. Beneath the noise of scarcity lies an unshakable truth. The universe, birthed and sustained by God, overflows with abundance. Every blade of grass, every grain of sand, every star flung across the heavens declares it. When you begin to understand this, you see that lack is not a condition of life itself, but of perception. It is the lens of fear that distorts the view of reality. Imagine standing before an ocean with a thimble in your hand. If you draw water with the thimble, you may conclude the ocean only offers a small portion, but the limitation is not in the ocean. It is in the vessel you bring. The same principle applies to supply. Divine abundance is limitless, but if your mind is conditioned by fear, doubt, and scarcity thinking, you can only receive a trickle of what is already available. The universe is not withholding. It is your own expectation that restricts the flow. The illusion of lack is powerful because it feeds on appearances. If the bank account shows a small number, the mind immediately screams, I am broke, I am unsafe, I will not make it. If bills pile up, fear declares there is no way out. But appearances are only shadows, not the substance. The spiritual reality is unseen, but more real than numbers on a screen or paper bills on a table. When you align with the higher truth of abundance, appearances begin to rearrange themselves. Lack dissolves, not because you force circumstances, but because you shift your consciousness from scarcity to sufficiency, from fear to faith, from the visible to the invisible. Scarcity is also fueled by comparison. People look to the left and right and see what others have, and immediately they feel deprived. Yet comparison blinds them to the wealth they already carry. A heart that breathes, a mind that thinks, hands that create, ideas that inspire. These are treasures beyond price. The illusion says, if you do not have what they have, you are poor. The truth says, what you have is enough, and what you need will appear in perfect timing. Comparison feeds jealousy, jealousy feeds anxiety, and anxiety blocks the flow of provision. But gratitude dissolves the illusion. The moment you give thanks for what is present, you awaken to abundance already surrounding you. Gratitude multiplies, complaint diminishes. The spiritual law of abundance is written into creation itself. Look at the trees heavy with fruit, the fields full of grain, the endless renewal of seasons. Look at the stars, billions upon billions stretching into infinity. Look at the human body with trillions of cells, each carrying energy and intelligence beyond comprehension. Everywhere there is overflow. There is no shortage in God's design, only circulation. Lack is not built into life. It is built into thought. The world clings to fear, and so it manufactures systems of competition, hoarding, and greed. But fear-based systems are fragile because they are disconnected from the eternal source. The truth of abundance cannot be destroyed. It simply waits for the mind that dares to believe it. When you embrace abundance, you begin to act differently. You no longer cling desperately to every penny, fearing it is your last. Instead, you release with trust, knowing that giving is part of the flow. A stream that is dammed begins to stagnate, but a stream that flows remains fresh and full. So it is with supply. Giving does not diminish you, it positions you for multiplication. This is why those who give generously often find themselves continuously replenished. They are living in harmony with the circulation of abundance. The illusion of lack says, hold tight or you will run out. The truth of abundance says, release and more will come. The illusion of lack also binds the imagination. When people believe resources are scarce, they stop seeing possibilities. They declare there is no way, and so their minds shut down, but abundance expands vision. The one who believes in overflow sees opportunities where others see obstacles. They believe ideas are infinite, solutions are infinite, channels are infinite. They understand that wealth is not just money, it is creativity, relationships, insight, health, and divine connections. When you walk in abundance, you become inventive, bold, and resilient because you know the source is not limited. Living in the truth of abundance also releases you from envy. You no longer resent others for their success because you know their good does not take away from yours. The illusion of lack says, if they prosper, there is less for me. But abundance says, their prosperity is proof that prosperity is possible, and mine is on its way. This shift heals division and creates unity. Instead of competing, you celebrate. Instead of hoarding, you share. Instead of shrinking, you expand. The illusion of lack thrives on fear of the future. It whispers, what if you lose your job? What if the economy collapses? What if you run out? But abundance rests in trust. It answers, even if one door closes, another will open. Even if one channel dries, another will flow. The source cannot fail. With this confidence, you stop tormenting yourself with endless what-ifs, and instead live with assurance in the present. Fear imagines endless disaster. Faith imagines endless provision. Both are visions, but only one aligns with eternal truth. To truly live in abundance, you must retrain your mind. Centuries of conditioning have taught humanity to fear scarcity. You must renew your thoughts daily, choosing to declare abundance instead of lack. Every time you speak words of shortage, you reinforce the illusion. Every time you speak words of sufficiency, you strengthen the truth. Your words are seeds, and what you plant will grow. If you consistently affirm, "I never have enough," life echoes back shortage. If you affirm, "I live in overflow," life rearranges itself to confirm your declaration. So the journey from illusion to truth is a journey of faith, perception, and practice. It is choosing to see with spiritual eyes instead of natural eyes. It is daring to believe that the unseen is more powerful than the seen. It is living from a higher law, where abundance is not a promise far off, but a reality here and now. When you make this shift, you step out of the prison of fear and into the wide fields of sufficiency. You no longer chase after supply anxiously. You walk in it confidently. The illusion fades and the truth shines. There is no lack in God, and therefore no lack in you. Fear is one of the greatest thieves of human potential. It paralyzes, freezes, and shrinks the soul until life becomes a prison of what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. When it comes to finances, fear is the invisible chain that keeps many from ever stepping into their destined abundance. Fear whispers that the economy is unstable, that jobs are insecure, that savings will vanish, that disaster is always one headline away. Under its influence, people cling tightly to what little they have, believing that by holding on, they are safe. But in truth, fear suffocates creativity, blinds the vision, and stops the flow of provision. The irony is that the very act of grasping tightly in fear often causes the loss one dreads, for fear creates limitation, while faith creates expansion. When a person gives in to fear, their mind becomes rigid. They stop imagining new possibilities, stop taking bold steps, stop seeing opportunities. Fear says, "Stay where you are. Do not risk. You will fail." As a result, they miss doors that were already open, solutions that were already waiting, ideas that were ready to blossom. Fear paralyzes not only actions but also perception. It creates tunnel vision, showing only danger, never potential. Imagine a bird that refuses to fly because it fears falling. It sits trembling in the nest, wings folded, never realizing that its very nature is to soar. So it is with the human soul trapped in fear. Instead of soaring into abundance, it crouches in scarcity, chained by illusions. Faith, however, multiplies. Faith is the opposite force that expands vision, unlocks creativity, and energizes action. Faith says, "Step out. The ground will appear beneath your feet. Take the risk. The way will open. Give freely. It will return multiplied." Faith sees beyond the visible to the invisible, beyond the temporary to the eternal. Where fear sees lack, faith sees opportunity. Where fear sees endings, faith sees beginnings. Where fear sees death, faith sees life. And because faith shapes expectation, it becomes a magnet for provision. Those who trust boldly attract ideas, resources, and people that others overlook, simply because their eyes are open to receive. Fear paralyzes because it is rooted in distrust of the source. It whispers that God will not provide, that you are on your own, that the universe is hostile and unforgiving. This lie causes anxiety, sleepless nights, and restless striving. People hustle endlessly, trying to secure their lives by human effort alone, yet deep inside they feel unsafe. The moment one bill is paid, fear invents a new crisis. The moment one debt is cleared, fear imagines another. It is a treadmill of worry that never ends. Faith, by contrast, rests in trust. It knows that God is faithful, that provision is certain, that the same Spirit who clothed the lilies and fed the sparrows will supply every need. This trust releases the heart from torment, allowing peace to replace panic. And in that peace, new paths of multiplication appear. Fear also isolates. It causes people to retreat inward, to avoid collaboration, to view others as threats rather than partners. Scarcity thinking fueled by fear says, if they win, I lose. If they prosper, I lack. This mindset fractures communities, breeds competition, and creates division. But faith multiplies through connection. Faith says, there is enough for all. Your success does not diminish mine, it enhances it. This outlook encourages generosity, cooperation, and shared growth. As people give freely in faith, resources circulate, ideas are exchanged, and everyone rises together. Faith multiplies not just money, but relationships, opportunities, and joy. Consider the parable of the talents. The servant who buried his gift in the ground acted out of fear. He was paralyzed by the thought of losing what little he had, so he did nothing. In the end, his fear brought the very loss he dreaded. Meanwhile, the servants who stepped out in trust multiplied their talents. They took risks, they acted in faith, and abundance followed. This timeless truth reveals a spiritual law. Fear leads to stagnation and loss, but faith leads to multiplication and increase. The one who hides their gift out of fear loses it, but the one who invests in faith multiplies it. Fear convinces people to withhold generosity. They think, if I give, I will have less. If I share, I will not have enough for myself. But this is the great deception. Generosity born of faith always multiplies. It opens channels of blessing that fear can never comprehend. History and testimony are filled with stories of those who gave out of trust, only to see the supply return to them in greater measure. Fear hoards and shrivels, but faith releases and expands. The act of giving is a declaration that you trust the source more than appearances, and this trust calls forth abundance. Fear often masquerades as wisdom. It says, be practical, be cautious, play it safe. But caution rooted in fear is not wisdom, it is paralysis. True wisdom is guided by faith, which hears divine direction and acts with courage. Fear-based caution says, the economy is bad, do nothing. Faith-based wisdom says, the economy may shake, but my source is unshakable. I will move forward as I am led. Faith multiplies because it acts in alignment with divine guidance, even when circumstances seem unfavorable. It steps out when the world says, stay in. It invests when others retreat. It believes when others doubt, and in doing so, it reaps where fear reaps nothing. Fear feeds on imagination, but faith also feeds on imagination. Fear imagines disaster, ruin, and failure, and thus creates them. Faith imagines supply, solutions, and success, and thus manifests them. Both are visions of the unseen, but only faith aligns with the eternal truth of abundance. When you allow fear to rule, your imagination becomes a factory of worst-case scenarios. You see problems everywhere and shrink from them. But when faith rules, your imagination becomes a factory of possibilities. You see potential in every challenge and expand into it. The same imagination that fear uses to paralyze, faith uses to multiply. The power of faith is that it transforms not only your inner state, but also your outer reality. Faith shifts your energy, your words, your actions, and thus the world around you. A fearful person speaks limitation and lives small. A faithful person speaks abundance and walks into it. Fear says, I cannot, and life answers, indeed, you cannot. Faith says, I can, and life answers, indeed, you can. Fear closes the door, faith opens it. Fear tightens the hand, faith releases it. Fear builds walls, faith builds bridges. Fear shrinks the soul, faith multiplies it. To live in faith is not to deny challenges or ignore reality, but to stand in a higher reality. It is to look at the storm and still believe in calm. It is to see the empty cup and still believe in overflow. It is to hear the world cry lack and still declare abundance. A faith multiplies because it connects you to the source that is infinite, and when you are connected to the infinite, limitation loses its power. Fear paralyzes because it cuts you off from that connection, leaving you stranded in illusions of shortage. But the choice is always yours, to freeze in fear or to expand in faith. Words are not mere sounds. They are creative forces that shape reality. Every sentence spoken carries vibration, intention, and power. From the beginning of time, creation itself was called forth through words. The ancient truth declares that life and death are in the power of the tongue, and those who understand this law begin to guard their speech as carefully as a farmer guards the seed. Each word is a seed sown into the field of consciousness, and the harvest is inevitable. When you speak of lack, limitation, and fear, you plant thorns that choke abundance. When you speak of provision, overflow, and faith, you plant fruit, bearing trees that multiply endlessly. Words are not idle decorations. They are blueprints of tomorrow. The tragedy is that most people speak without awareness. They utter phrases of shortage and wonder why shortage appears. They say, "I am broke, I never have enough, money slips through my fingers," and then are surprised when their experience mirrors their confession. Yet the law cannot be broken. Words release energy, and energy returns in kind. A person who constantly proclaims failure is building a wall of failure around their life, brick by brick. Another who continually speaks abundance is opening gates for abundance to pour in. Words are currents in the river of life, directing where the flow of experience shall move. Every thought is a silent word, and every spoken word is a thought made audible. The universe responds to both. But the spoken word carries intensified power because it is sound, and sound vibrates, echoing into the seen and unseen realms. When you declare, "God is my source, my supply is endless, my needs are met in full," you send forth a vibration that aligns with spiritual truth. That vibration attracts circumstances, ideas, and opportunities that match it. The world begins to organize itself around your declaration. The invisible law of correspondence ensures that what is affirmed consistently manifests eventually. Consider the way people casually speak curses over their finances. They say, "I can't afford this. I'll never get out of debt. Things always go wrong for me." These words, though spoken lightly, carry weight. They become subconscious instructions, programming the mind to seek out proof of limitation. Soon the person unconsciously makes choices that reinforce the words they have spoken. They pass by opportunities, sabotage blessings, or settle for less because their own words have built a cage around their expectations. Speech creates patterns, and patterns create destiny. The one who constantly declares shortage lives in shortage, not because the universe is cruel, but because their tongue has summoned it. On the other hand, those who discipline their words to align with abundance experience a different reality. They declare, "I live in overflow. Money comes to me from expected and unexpected sources. Divine supply meets every demand." At first, such words may feel strange, even unbelievable, but as they are repeated with conviction, the subconscious accepts them. Soon the individual begins to notice possibilities they once overlooked. They develop courage to act where they once hesitated. People appear, ideas flow, doors open, because their words have created a new atmosphere. They are no longer bound by the old script of lack. They are writing a new story of abundance. Words not only shape finances, but every area of life. Relationships, health, work, creativity, all are influenced by the words spoken over them. A parent who continually tells a child, "You will never succeed," sows seeds of failure that may bear fruit for years. A leader who speaks encouragement multiplies confidence and growth in others. Words spoken to others plant seeds in their lives, just as words spoken to oneself plant seeds in one's own life. That is why blessing is more powerful than cursing. A blessing spoken in faith can break cycles of despair because it introduces new creative energy into the field of possibility. The power of words also reveals why gratitude is transformative. When you say, "Thank you for what I have, thank you for what is coming, thank you for unseen blessings already on their way," you set in motion a creative current that multiplies provision. Gratitude-filled words attract more to be grateful for. Complaint-filled words attract more to complain about. The universe does not discriminate. It simply echoes the words it receives. Like a faithful servant, it delivers according to the orders placed. The tongue is the pen that writes those orders. One of the most overlooked truths is that silence in the face of fear is better than careless speech. If the choice is between declaring lack and saying nothing, silence preserves energy. But the higher way is to intentionally replace negative speech with affirmations of abundance. Instead of saying, "I can't afford it," one can say, "It is not mine to have now, but something better is coming." Instead of saying, "Money is always scarce," one can say, "Supply is flowing even now, and I am open to receive." The shift may seem small, but words accumulate power. Each statement is a brushstroke, and together they paint the canvas of your reality. There is also power in repeating words daily, because repetition engraves them upon the subconscious. The subconscious does not argue. It accepts what it hears repeatedly and works tirelessly to manifest it. That is why affirmations spoken with emotion and conviction are so potent. They bypass the doubts of the conscious mind and implant seeds in the fertile soil of the subconscious. Over time, these seeds grow into outer circumstances. Many dismiss affirmations as wishful thinking, yet they unknowingly affirm lack all day long with phrases like, "Nothing ever works out for me." If affirmations of lack create lack, then affirmations of abundance must create abundance. The law works both ways. Words are also instruments of faith. When you speak boldly of abundance in the midst of apparent scarcity, you demonstrate trust in the unseen source. Such speech is not denial, it is declaration. You are not pretending problems do not exist. You are proclaiming a higher truth that overrides them. Just as light drives out darkness, words of abundance drive out words of lack. They act as spiritual commands, shaping reality to match divine law rather than human fear. Speaking abundance is a form of aligning with heaven's economy, where supply is infinite and provision is constant. Every breakthrough begins with a word. The invention, the idea, the movement, all are born from someone daring to speak it into existence. Words open realms of possibility. They call forth solutions not yet visible. They rally hearts, inspire action, and ignite faith. The difference between a life bound by limitation and a life flowing with abundance often comes down to the words habitually spoken. For words are not passive reflections of life, they are active creators of it. So the challenge and the invitation is simple. Become conscious of your words, listen to your own tongue, notice if it bends toward lack or toward abundance. Refuse to let careless speech sabotage your supply. Instead, wield your words as tools of creation. Speak blessing, speak provision, speak overflow, until your entire atmosphere resonates with abundance. For as surely as seeds become harvests, words become worlds. When your words align with truth, you become a co-creator with God, calling forth prosperity, peace, and plenty into every area of your life. Expectation is a magnetic force. It draws into your life the very experiences you consistently anticipate. The law of expectation states that whatever you truly and deeply expect, whether good or bad, will eventually manifest in your world. It is not simply hope, not merely wishing, but a settled conviction in the heart and mind that a certain outcome is inevitable. This law works with precision, whether one is conscious of it or not. If you expect disappointment, you meet it at every turn. If you expect abundance, opportunities appear in alignment with that belief. Expectation is the architect of experience, silently shaping the conditions of tomorrow. Most people live unconsciously under this law, letting their expectations be molded by circumstances, news reports, or the opinions of others. When the world declares times are hard, opportunities are few, the future is bleak, they absorb these messages and expect nothing more. And because expectation is creative, their experience mirrors the message. They unconsciously accept limitation as destiny and call it reality, when in truth they are living out the harvest of their own expectation. Expectation is never neutral, it is always producing. Even inaction is a form of expectation, for waiting without hope often brings forth stagnation and delay. Yet when expectation is consciously directed, it becomes a powerful tool of manifestation. To expect good is to prepare the ground for good. When a farmer plants seed, he expects harvest. He waters the soil, clears weeds, and labors with confidence, because his expectation sustains his work. In the same way, when you hold an unshakable expectation of abundance, your mind begins to act in alignment with that expectation. You notice doors you once overlooked. You speak words of faith instead of doubt. You carry yourself with the confidence of one who knows provision is coming. Expectation influences action, and action shapes results. Expectation also governs perception. Two people can face the same situation, yet one expects failure while the other expects breakthrough. The one who expects failure will see obstacles as proof that success is impossible, while the one who expects breakthrough will see the same obstacles as stepping stones toward the goal. Expectation determines the filter through which reality is viewed. It is the lens that colors perception, and perception shapes decisions. Over time, these decisions compound, leading one person into greater lack and the other into greater abundance, even though their circumstances began alike. The power of expectation is revealed in the way the subconscious mind responds to it. The subconscious cannot distinguish between reality and belief. It simply obeys whatever it is impressed with repeatedly. When you expect abundance, the subconscious begins working behind the scenes to align with that belief. It generates ideas, nudges intuition, and influences behavior toward outcomes that fulfill the expectation. When you expect lack, the subconscious works just as faithfully, guiding you toward choices and experiences that confirm the expectation of shortage. In this way, expectation becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The law of expectation also explains why faith is so essential to prosperity. Faith is, at its core, positive expectation rooted in trust. To live in faith is to expect good, even when outer evidence seems to suggest otherwise. It is to hold fast to the conviction that divine supply is present, even when circumstances whisper lack. This kind of expectation is not naive, it is powerful. It is a refusal to surrender inner certainty to outer appearances. When one expects abundance from God as the true source, the outer channels of provision begin to align with that inner expectation. The economy may falter, yet provision flows. Opportunities may appear limited, yet doors open. Faith-filled expectation bends reality to match spiritual truth. It is important to recognize that expectation is more than fleeting thought. It is a deep, consistent belief held in the heart. Many people say they desire abundance, but inwardly expect struggle. They pray for provision, yet secretly anticipate that their needs will go unmet. Their outer words are contradicted by inner expectation, and the law responds to the stronger of the two. The universe does not answer wishful thinking, it answers expectation. That is why aligning inner belief with spoken affirmation is vital. When the heart and the tongue agree, expectation is reinforced, and manifestation is inevitable. Gratitude strengthens expectation. To give thanks in advance for blessings not yet seen is a declaration of trust that they are already on the way. Gratitude is a form of expectation in action. It signals confidence that the unseen will soon become visible. Complaint, on the other hand, weakens expectation by focusing attention on lack. The more one complains, the more one expects disappointment, and the more disappointment appears. Gratitude shifts focus to what is good and multiplies the expectation of more good, creating a cycle of increase. Expectation is also contagious. When you consistently expect abundance, your energy influences those around you. People are drawn to those who radiate confident expectation. They sense possibility in your presence and are more willing to cooperate, support, or partner with you. Conversely, those who expect failure repel opportunity, for few are eager to join someone already convinced of defeat. Expectation not only shapes your personal reality, but also the way others respond to you. This is why leaders who carry strong, positive expectation often inspire entire groups or communities to rise higher. The challenge is that expectation must often be cultivated against the current of fear. The world is filled with messages that encourage you to expect the worst. Expect job loss, expect economic collapse, expect hardship. To stand in faith is to resist these voices and anchor your expectation in the unchanging source. It is to say, though the world declares lack, I expect abundance. Though the forecast is bleak, I expect provision. Though the evidence is scarce, I expect supply. This steadfastness creates a vibration that draws in resources unseen. It demonstrates trust in a higher law than that of human economies. One who masters expectation becomes unshakable. They do not collapse when outer conditions shift, for their inner certainty is stronger than the world's fluctuation. They know that expectation is a creative command, and they wield it with wisdom. When fear whispers, they replace it with affirmations of trust. When doubt arises, they reaffirm their conviction. Each act of aligning thought and feeling with positive expectation builds momentum until abundance flows naturally into their experience. Expectation is not passive waiting, it is active alignment. It is preparing, planning, and speaking as though the good you seek is already on its way. It is setting the table for blessings not yet seen. When a person truly expects guests, they prepare the house, set out chairs, and cook the meal. In the same way, when you truly expect abundance, you prepare space for it in your life. You handle your finances with wisdom. You speak words of overflow. You carry yourself as one already supplied. This readiness signals to the universe that your expectation is not idle but alive, and abundance rushes to fill the prepared space. The law of expectation is impartial. It does not reward hope alone, nor punish fear alone. It simply delivers what is expected. That is why the responsibility rests upon each individual to guard expectation carefully. To expect small is to receive small. To expect great is to receive great. The difference lies not in the generosity of the source, but in the capacity of the vessel. The cup that is held out determines the measure received. A small cup of expectation gathers only a trickle. A vast cup of expectation gathers an overflow. Expectation, then, is the silent architect of destiny. It is the unseen law shaping the seen world. Whether directed toward lack or abundance, it never fails to deliver. To live with conscious expectation of abundance is to align with the truth that supply is infinite and provision unending. It is to walk by faith, and not by sight. And those who master this law find that their lives become testimonies of divine generosity, proving that what one expects in faith is sure to appear. Giving is not the loss the world imagines. It is the key that unlocks the storehouses of abundance. The spiritual law is unshakable. What is released in faith returns multiplied. Many cling tightly to what little they have, believing that holding on preserves it. Yet in reality, clinging closes the hand, and a closed hand cannot receive. Giving opens the hand, opens the heart, and opens the flow of provision. To give is to declare, I trust my source. I am not diminished by releasing this gift. I am increased because I align myself with divine circulation. In that moment, giving becomes the channel through which receiving is activated. The world's economy often teaches the opposite. It whispers, keep everything, hoard, save at all costs, for supply is limited and may run out. This belief is rooted in fear, and fear always breeds lack. But in spiritual truth, supply is never limited, for it flows from the infinite. Giving is the act of affirming that truth. It proves in action that you believe God's abundance is greater than any shortage. The one who gives freely demonstrates faith that more will always come, while the one who withholds confirms belief in lack. The law responds accordingly, for energy follows belief. When you give, you plant seeds. No farmer expects a harvest without first scattering seed upon the ground. The seed may appear small, even insignificant, yet within it lies multiplied fruit. In the same way, every act of giving, no matter how small, contains within it a harvest far greater than what was released. Money given in faith returns in unexpected channels. Time given in service returns in opportunities and connections. Encouragement given to another returns as strength and inspiration when you need it most. Giving is never loss. It is investment into the divine cycle of increase. There is also a mystery in the way giving changes the giver. It softens the heart, expands the mind, and lifts the spirit. Fear contracts the soul. Giving expands it. When you give, you step out of the narrow confines of self-preservation and enter the flow of love. This flow is the same current in which abundance travels. To dwell in fear and hoarding is to cut oneself off from that current. To dwell in giving is to merge with it, and once merged, provision flows without resistance. The giver becomes a channel through which the divine distributes blessing, and channels never run dry, for they are continually refilled. Many ask, how can I give when I have so little? But this is the very question that reveals the trap of lack, thinking. The truth is that everyone has something to give. It may be money, yes, but it may also be time, kindness, skill, or even a listening ear. The act of giving is what activates the principle, not the size of the gift. A coin given with joy may carry more power than a fortune given with resentment. What matters is the spirit in which the gift is offered. When you give cheerfully, freely, with love, you align with the vibration of abundance, and that alignment draws supply back to you in multiplied form. The act of giving also demonstrates trust in divine timing. You may not see the return immediately, just as a farmer does not reap the harvest the day after planting, but the law assures that the return is on its way. Patience is part of the process, for waiting with faith strengthens the expectation of increase. Those who give and then doubt, who immediately say, I'll never see this again, undermine the very law they set in motion. But those who give and declare, my harvest is assured, it is already on the way, position themselves to receive in fullness. The harvest may come from unexpected sources, but it always comes. There is a profound joy in giving that cannot be measured in numbers. It creates a sense of wealth even before the return arrives. To give is to declare, I have enough. I am rich enough to share. That very declaration shifts consciousness from lack to plenty, and that shift itself attracts more. Lack, consciousness says, I must hold everything or I will not survive. Abundance, consciousness says, I am free to give because I am connected to unlimited supply. The act of giving reinforces abundance, consciousness, and abundance. Consciousness attracts abundance. Thus, giving multiplies wealth on both the inner and outer planes. It is also true that giving breaks the power of greed and fear. These two forces are chains that keep many bound in cycles of scarcity. Greed whispers that there is never enough. Fear convinces the heart to hide what it has. But the moment one gives, both chains are broken. Fear loses its grip, for faith takes its place. Greed dissolves, for love has acted. With each act of giving, the heart is trained in trust. Over time, this trust becomes unshakable, and prosperity flows naturally to the one who lives by it. Giving also mirrors the very nature of the divine. Creation itself is an act of giving. The sun gives light without exhaustion. The earth gives fruit, air, and water without depletion. Life itself is constant giving. To align with this principle is to align with the rhythm of creation. When you give, you harmonize with this eternal flow, and harmony always brings blessing. Withholding places you out of rhythm, disconnected from the source of supply. Giving restores connection, ensuring that the flow of provision continues without interruption. It is vital to remember that giving is not mechanical, it is spiritual. It is not about transaction, but transformation. One cannot give with the motive of greed, saying, I will give only to get more. Such giving is hollow, and the law responds accordingly. But when giving is done in love, with trust in the source and desire to bless, it becomes powerful. The return comes naturally, without striving, because the act was aligned with divine law. Giving in this spirit transforms both giver and receiver, lifting both into higher states of consciousness. Even in times of great need, giving is the key to breaking the cycle of lack. History is full of stories where those who gave their last portion found themselves miraculously provided for. The act of giving, especially when done from a place of apparent scarcity, is the highest declaration of faith. It says to the universe, I believe so strongly in abundance that I release this gift without fear. Such faith never goes unrewarded. The return may come in ways the mind cannot predict, but it comes with certainty. In truth, giving and receiving are not separate. They are two sides of one coin. To give is to set in motion the process of receiving. To receive is to make room for more giving. The cycle is endless, like the flow of water between ocean and river. Those who live in the rhythm of this cycle never lack, for they understand that the more they give, the more they receive, and the more they receive, the more they can give. Their life becomes a continual circulation of blessings, a living testimony to the law that giving unlocks receiving. Gratitude is a power far greater than many realize. It is more than polite manners or a fleeting moment of saying thank you. Gratitude is a spiritual force that shifts the entire atmosphere of your life. It changes the vibration you carry, alters the way you perceive the world, and draws into your experience more of what you acknowledge with appreciation. To be grateful is to declare, I see abundance in this moment. I recognize the hand of God at work in my life, and I honor it. That declaration unlocks blessings that may have been waiting all along, hidden in plain sight until the eyes of gratitude made them visible. When one lives without gratitude, the atmosphere becomes heavy with complaint. Complaint focuses only on what is missing, what is broken, what is wrong. It creates a lens of scarcity through which all of life is interpreted. No matter how much a person gains, if their heart is tuned to complaint, they will never see sufficiency. The atmosphere of complaint repels opportunities, drains joy, and magnifies problems. Gratitude, by contrast, transforms even small things into treasures. It multiplies joy in the heart, shifts attention to what is working, and creates an atmosphere of expectancy where more good can flow. Gratitude is creative because it aligns with abundance. Every time you give thanks, you affirm the presence of supply. You say, I am not empty, I am filled, I am not forsaken, I am cared for. This affirmation opens the channel for more supply to reach you. Just as a magnet draws iron, gratitude draws provision. The more you dwell in gratitude, the stronger the magnetic pull. You begin to notice blessings that once went unseen, the kindness of a stranger, the breath in your lungs, the opportunities disguised as challenges. Gratitude shifts perception, and perception creates reality. The atmosphere of gratitude is not only internal, it radiates outward. People are drawn to those who carry grateful hearts. Gratitude produces joy, humility, and warmth, qualities that attract goodwill and cooperation. On the other hand, those who live in complaint often repel others, for no one enjoys dwelling in the shadow of constant negativity. Gratitude creates connection. It makes others feel valued, seen, and appreciated. In this way, gratitude expands networks, strengthens relationships, and opens doors to opportunities that complaint would have slammed shut. Even in times of struggle, gratitude is transformative. To give thanks not only when blessings are visible, but also when challenges loom, is the highest form of faith. It is to declare, I trust that good is present even here, even now. This kind of gratitude shifts the atmosphere most dramatically because it refuses to bow to appearances. It looks beyond the storm and praises the calm that is coming. This attitude draws strength into the soul and resilience into the mind. Challenges faced with complaint multiply despair. Challenges faced with gratitude multiply faith and perseverance. Gratitude also influences the body. Scientific studies confirm that grateful people enjoy better health, less stress, and greater energy. But beyond science, there is a spiritual truth. Gratitude releases healing energy. When the mind is fixed on lack, the body grows weary under the weight of worry. When the mind is fixed on thankfulness, the body is uplifted, relaxed, and strengthened. Gratitude creates an atmosphere where health can flourish. Every thank you becomes a balm that soothes anxiety and strengthens hope. The atmosphere of gratitude is also a shield against fear. Fear thrives on the unknown, on imagining worst-case scenarios, on amplifying what might go wrong. Gratitude disarms fear by anchoring attention to what is already right. It reminds the heart, I have been provided for before, and I will be provided for again. If goodness met me yesterday, it will meet me tomorrow. This remembrance shifts the atmosphere from anxiety to trust. Fear loses its grip where gratitude is present, because gratitude fills the space with faith. Gratitude multiplies because it changes expectation. When you consistently give thanks, you begin to expect more reasons to give thanks. That expectation draws in experiences that confirm it. A person who wakes each day grateful for breath, for shelter, for food, soon notices opportunities that align with their gratitude. They see doors opening, connections forming, solutions appearing. Their expectation of good creates more good. Meanwhile, a person who begins each day with complaint expects disappointment, and disappointment finds them. Both live under the same law, but gratitude aligns with abundance, while complaint aligns with lack. To practice gratitude is to cultivate awareness. It is choosing to look for blessings, even small ones, and magnify them with appreciation. It may begin with something as simple as, I am grateful for this meal, for this moment of peace, for the laughter of a loved one. These small acknowledgments create ripples that expand outward. Soon, gratitude becomes a habit, and the atmosphere of one's life shifts permanently. Problems still arise, but they are seen through a different lens. Instead of being overwhelming burdens, they are viewed as opportunities for growth, lessons in disguise, or temporary hurdles on the way to greater blessing. Gratitude also aligns the heart with generosity. The grateful soul says, I have received much. I can share much. This sharing creates cycles of giving and receiving that multiply blessings further. Gratitude and generosity feed one another. The more grateful you are, the more you give. The more you give, the more reasons you find to be grateful. This cycle produces an atmosphere so rich with abundance that lack cannot survive in it. Gratitude is both seed and harvest. It begins the cycle and sustains it. When gratitude is expressed, it not only changes you but also blesses others. To tell someone, I appreciate you, I am thankful for your help, your kindness matters, lifts their spirit and affirms their value. Such words can turn discouragement into hope, loneliness into connection, and despair into joy. Gratitude spoken aloud is a gift that multiplies both for the giver and the receiver. In this way, gratitude spreads, creating atmospheres of encouragement that ripple through families, communities, and even nations. Gratitude is not denial of reality. It is recognition of a higher reality. It does not pretend that challenges do not exist, but it insists that blessings exist alongside them. It does not ignore difficulties, but it acknowledges that within and beyond them, divine provision remains constant. Gratitude looks at what is and says, even here, there is something good. That perspective shifts the atmosphere from heaviness to lightness, from despair to hope, from scarcity to abundance. Ultimately, gratitude is the language of abundance. It says, I see, I honor, I receive, and I expect more. The more fluently you speak this language, the more your life reflects abundance. Gratitude changes the air you breathe, the tone you carry, the energy you radiate. It is a spiritual force that reshapes not only your perception, but your reality. When gratitude fills the atmosphere of your life, abundance becomes inevitable because you are tuned to the frequency of blessing. Obedience is the key that unlocks hidden doors, the unseen force that clears pathways where none seem to exist. To obey divine direction is to align your steps with wisdom higher than your own. The human mind often leans on logic, calculations, and predictions, yet these are limited by what can be seen and measured. Divine instruction comes from a perspective far greater, one that sees the end from the beginning and knows the paths unseen. When you obey that inner prompting, that still small voice, you set in motion events and alignments that reason alone could never orchestrate. What appears to be a simple act of obedience becomes the turning point for miracles. Obedience is often misunderstood as restriction, as if following divine guidance limits freedom. But in truth, obedience is liberation. It releases you from the bondage of fear, driven decisions, and places you on the path of abundance. Disobedience or resistance is not merely rebellion, it is misalignment. When you resist guidance, you step out of the flow of provision and into struggle. Life becomes harder, not because the source withholds, but because you are rowing against the current. Obedience places you in rhythm with the current, carrying you swiftly toward your destiny. Many desire prosperity, yet ignore the small nudges that would lead them there. They ask for supply, but resist the voice that says, give here, move there, release this, pursue that. They cling to comfort, preferring the security of the familiar over the risk of trust. Yet abundance rarely enters through the door of comfort. It flows through the door of obedience. Often, the pathway to provision looks illogical at first glance. To give when you feel you cannot, to step out when you feel unready, to trust when you see no evidence. These are the acts of obedience that unlock supernatural supply. The stories of provision throughout time are filled with moments of obedience. A widow pours her last bit of oil into borrowed vessels and finds them filled to overflowing. A man casts his net on the other side of the boat and hauls in more fish than he can carry. Time and again, obedience to an unlikely instruction leads to breakthrough. The principle is timeless. The pathway to abundance is often hidden behind simple acts of trust. Obedience is the key that reveals it. Obedience also refines character. It requires humility, for one must admit that human wisdom is not enough. Pride resists obedience, insisting, "I know better, I will do it my way." But humility bows to the higher plan, recognizing that the source sees what is hidden. In that bowing, character is reshaped, trust is deepened, and capacity for greater blessings is expanded. Prosperity is not only about resources, it is about readiness to carry them. Obedience prepares the vessel to hold the abundance that is coming. Without obedience, abundance can crush rather than bless, for the character is unprepared to manage it. It is also true that obedience clears the atmosphere of confusion. When you hesitate, delay, or waver between yes and no, your energy becomes scattered. Confusion breeds stagnation, but when you obey promptly, clarity follows. Each act of obedience strengthens intuition, sharpens discernment, and makes the next instruction clearer. Soon, you no longer wrestle with indecision, for you have trained yourself to respond swiftly to guidance. This swiftness keeps you in constant motion along the path of increase, while hesitation often causes doors to close before they can be entered. Fear is the greatest enemy of obedience. Fear asks, "What if I lose? What if I fail? What if I step out and fall?" Yet fear is built on illusions. The act of obedience dissolves fear because it shifts focus from what might go wrong to the one who guides the steps. Each time you obey despite fear, you discover provision waiting on the other side. These discoveries build faith until fear loses its power altogether. Obedience becomes easier because trust has been proven again and again. Obedience is not always about great leaps. Often it is about small, consistent steps. A nudge to save rather than spend, a prompting to call a certain person, an inner voice urging you to study or prepare. These little acts create momentum. They may seem insignificant in the moment, but over time they open great pathways. A river is not carved by a single rush of water, but by steady flow. In the same way, steady obedience shapes the course of life, creating channels for abundance to flow. Obedience also aligns with timing. There are seasons when opportunities are ripe, but hesitation causes them to wither. Obedience ensures that you are in the right place at the right time. To obey promptly is to catch the wave of provision as it rises. To delay is often to miss it. Many regret missed chances, not realizing that they were nudged but chose comfort over courage. Yet every new instruction carries the promise of redemption. As long as you choose obedience today, the path can still unfold before you. Another mystery of obedience is that it often blesses others as much as yourself. When you follow guidance to give, to serve, to speak, your act may unlock provision for someone else. That person, in turn, may be the channel through which your next blessing flows. In this way, obedience creates networks of blessing, weaving lives together in ways unseen. You may think your act is small, but it may set in motion ripples that touch countless lives. Abundance flows not only to you, but through you, because obedience has made you a channel. There is peace in obedience that nothing else can give. Even before the visible reward arrives, the heart rests knowing it is aligned with divine will. This peace is itself a form of prosperity, for anxiety cannot coexist with it. To walk in obedience is to walk in harmony with the source, and harmony produces joy, contentment, and confidence. These inner treasures are wealth beyond measure, and they prepare the atmosphere for outer treasures to arrive. Disobedience, by contrast, often produces restlessness. The inner voice continues to whisper, the prompting returns, the unease lingers until the step is taken. Ignoring guidance does not silence it, it only delays blessing. Many live with constant tension, not because life is cruel, but because they have resisted the voice of direction. The moment they choose obedience, the tension lifts, the pathway clears, and provision flows once again. The beauty of obedience is that it does not require full understanding. You do not need to know how every detail will unfold. You only need to take the next step. The map is not given in its entirety, only the instruction for the moment. Each step reveals the next. Trust is built in increments, and provision arrives stage by stage. Obedience keeps you moving, and movement keeps you aligned with supply. Stagnation breaks when you act on the guidance you already have. In the end, obedience is the bridge between promise and manifestation. Many know the promises of abundance, yet never step into them because they resist the bridge. They prefer to stand on the bank, waiting for provision to come without movement. But promises are fulfilled through partnership, and obedience is the act of partnership. When you obey, you meet the promise halfway, and the pathway to fulfillment opens. The law is simple. Obedience unlocks abundance, while resistance locks it away. Those who choose obedience walk paths others cannot see, and they find doors opening where others only see walls. Peace is the hidden magnet of prosperity, the quiet force that draws abundance into a life more powerfully than worry, striving, or endless labor ever could. When peace settles in the heart, it creates an atmosphere where solutions unfold, resources gather, and opportunities are attracted like iron filings to a magnet. Many imagine that prosperity is secured by constant effort, restless planning, and sleepless nights, but such striving often drives abundance away, for it is rooted in fear and distrust. Peace, by contrast, is born of trust in a higher source, and this trust emits an energy that cannot help but pull provision into its orbit. The world conditions people to believe that anxiety proves responsibility, that stress is the price of success, that sleepless worry is evidence of care. But worry never adds a single coin to a purse, nor a single loaf of bread to a table. Worry exhausts, diminishes, and blinds the eyes to possibility. Peace, however, clears the vision, sharpens discernment, and opens the inner ear to hear instructions that lead to provision. In peace, creativity flourishes. In peace, clarity is restored. In peace, wisdom speaks. And from peace, prosperity naturally flows. Imagine a farmer pacing his field in agitation, fretting over whether the seed will sprout, anxiously digging it up each day to see if it has begun to grow. His constant interference destroys the very harvest he longs for. Contrast him with the farmer who plants, waters, and then rests in confidence, knowing that growth is inevitable if he has done his part. The latter farmer, at peace, will reap a bountiful harvest, while the anxious farmer sabotages his own crop. So it is with finances and provision. Peace trusts the process of divine supply, while worry uproots it before it can bear fruit. Peace communicates confidence in the source. It says, "I know my needs are already met, even if I cannot yet see the provision. I trust that the same power that created galaxies can arrange my affairs." This calm assurance attracts resources, for life responds to the vibration of trust. Just as fearful energy pushes people and opportunities away, peaceful energy draws them closer. Have you noticed how people naturally gravitate to those who radiate calm, who exude serenity in a storm? That same principle applies to prosperity. Peace attracts cooperation, favor, and goodwill, all of which are channels through which abundance flows. Anxiety, on the other hand, repels prosperity. It clouds judgment, leading to rash decisions, missed opportunities, and closed doors. Many losses occur not because supply was absent, but because worry blinded eyes to the path. Fearful minds see only obstacles, while peaceful minds perceive possibilities. A contract unsigned, an investment missed, a partnership delayed, all may stem from an anxious heart unable to discern the right timing. Peace opens the inner sight to recognize opportunity the moment it arrives, ensuring nothing of value slips by unnoticed. Peace is not passivity. It is not idleness or neglect of responsibility. Peace is active trust. It is the calm that comes from knowing you have done your part and that the unseen forces of supply are doing theirs. It is not resignation, but expectation, a poised stillness that waits with confidence. Just as a seed sprouts unseen in the soil before it pushes above ground, so provision often germinates invisibly before it manifests. Peace guards the heart during this unseen process, preventing panic from aborting what is already in motion. This is why cultivating peace is as vital to prosperity as labor or strategy. To labor without peace is to work against yourself. To plan without peace is to weave anxiety into your designs. But when peace infuses your efforts, even small actions yield multiplied results. Peace strengthens the hand, clears the mind, and sustains energy. Anxiety depletes strength, but peace restores it. Anxiety closes creativity, but peace unlocks it. Ideas that generate wealth often arrive not in restless striving, but in moments of quiet calm, when the mind is at rest and open to inspiration. Peace also sustains generosity, which is a foundation of abundance. A fearful heart clutches and withholds, always afraid of loss. A peaceful heart gives freely, knowing supply is endless. This freedom to release resources keeps the channel of giving and receiving open. Prosperity stagnates in fearful hoarding but multiplies in peaceful generosity. Thus, peace not only attracts prosperity, but ensures it continues to flow once it arrives. Consider also how peace transforms the body. Stress and worry tighten muscles, disturb sleep, and weaken health. Poor health diminishes capacity to create and enjoy wealth. Peace, by calming the body, strengthens vitality and energy. With health intact, you can pursue opportunities with vigor and enjoy the blessings that come. Prosperity without peace is misery, but peace brings balance, allowing prosperity to enrich life fully. In this way, peace is not merely the magnet of prosperity, but the atmosphere in which prosperity becomes meaningful. There is also a deep mystery. Peace is a form of prosperity itself. To be at rest in the heart, to sleep without fear, to walk without anxiety. This is wealth beyond measure. Many with riches lack peace and live in poverty of spirit, while those with little but with peace live richly. Yet when peace is held, outer wealth often follows, for peace and prosperity are kin. The one who has inner peace already lives in abundance, and this inner abundance draws outer abundance to match it. Peace is cultivated through trust, gratitude, and alignment with higher wisdom. Each time you choose calm over panic, trust over fear, faith over doubt, you strengthen the magnet of peace. Gratitude especially nourishes peace, for it shifts focus from what is lacking to what is already present. The grateful heart rests, knowing more will come. Complaining breeds restlessness, but thanksgiving breeds serenity. This serenity in turn attracts more reasons for gratitude, creating a cycle of abundance rooted in peace. Peace must sometimes be guarded. The noise of the world, the clamor of news, the constant warnings of scarcity, these are thieves of peace. If you allow them to rule your thoughts, peace will vanish, and with it the magnet of prosperity weakens. Guarding peace may mean turning away from voices of fear and immersing in affirmations of truth. It may mean silence, prayer, meditation, or simply choosing not to dwell on fearful reports. Whatever strengthens trust strengthens peace, and whatever strengthens peace strengthens prosperity. In truth, prosperity is never separate from peace. To gain wealth through turmoil is to live as a pauper with riches. To gain wealth through peace is to live as royalty, content within and without. Peace attracts not only money, but favor, friendship, health, and joy. It creates a life that is whole, a prosperity that is complete. This is why peace is not a luxury, but a necessity on the path to abundance. Without peace, prosperity slips away. With peace, it multiplies. So, when you seek prosperity, do not seek it with frantic striving. Seek peace first. Anchor yourself in trust, release fear, choose calm, and let serenity radiate through your being. For peace is the magnet, and prosperity cannot resist its pull. To live above circumstances is to recognize that you are not chained to the conditions around you, but instead carry within you a higher law, a greater reality, and a power that transcends appearances. Life on this earth is filled with shifting tides, mark its rise and fall. Jobs appear and vanish, relationships change, storms rage, and seasons turn. If your sense of well-being, security, and prosperity depends entirely on these outer conditions, then you are forever at the mercy of the world. You rise when it rises and fall when it falls. You are like a leaf tossed about by the wind, never steady, never secure. But there is another way to live. There is a way of lifting consciousness above the temporary conditions, choosing not to be bound by appearances, but to stand in the truth that your supply, your peace, and your abundance flow from an unchanging source. Circumstances are loud. They demand attention with their noise, their urgency, and their evidence. They point to empty bank accounts, unpaid bills, market crashes, and personal losses. They say, "See, here is proof of your lack. Here is proof of your failure. Here is proof of your limitation." If you bow to those voices, you shrink under the weight of appearances. But if you rise above them, declaring with conviction, "These circumstances do not define me, for I live by a higher law," then suddenly the grip of fear loosens. The outer world may still look unstable, but the inner world stands steady, and in that steadiness, circumstances begin to shift. Living above circumstances does not mean denying them or pretending they don't exist. It means refusing to allow them to dictate your truth. A storm may rage outside, but you do not need to let the storm enter your heart. A drought may dry up the land, but you can still drink from a well that never runs dry. To live above circumstances is to understand that while the outer world moves in cycles of lack and plenty, feast and famine, the inner source is constant, unbroken, and overflowing. When your trust is rooted in that source, you are lifted above the instability of conditions. Many people live imprisoned by what they see. They say, "I cannot succeed because the economy is failing. I cannot prosper because opportunities are scarce. I cannot move forward because I have no support." But these are chains forged by perception, not reality. Countless individuals throughout history have risen to greatness in times of famine, recession, war, and hardship. What separated them from those who faltered was not circumstance but consciousness. They refused to be defined by limitation and chose instead to live by faith in possibilities beyond the visible. In that faith, doors opened where there were none, paths appeared through the wilderness, and provision flowed from unexpected channels. To live above circumstances is to become the master of response rather than the victim of condition. The average person reacts to life, tossed by every wind, shaken by every storm. The one who lives above circumstances chooses response from a place of power. They see the same storm as everyone else, but they interpret it differently. Where others see disaster, they see opportunity. Where others see endings, they see beginnings. Where others see lack, they see space for provision to pour in. This difference in perspective does not just change how they feel, it changes what they attract, for life mirrors the state of consciousness. Imagine standing on the ground in the middle of a storm. Lightning flashes, winds howl, and the rain beats down. It seems terrifying and overwhelming, but rise in an airplane above the clouds, and suddenly you find yourself in calm skies, the sun shining brightly, the storm far beneath you. The storm is still there, but it no longer dominates your reality. This is the picture of living above circumstances. You cannot always stop storms from forming, but you can rise higher, choosing not to be swallowed by their chaos. Living above circumstances also requires discipline of thought. The mind wants to dwell on what is wrong, to repeat negative reports, to meditate on the fear of loss. If you allow the mind to dwell there, you sink into the weight of circumstances. But if you discipline thought, affirming truth, speaking abundance, and focusing on possibility, you rise. Thoughts are wings or anchors, depending on how they are used. To live above circumstances, you must choose wings. Faith is the fuel that lifts you higher. Faith declares abundance while standing in the midst of lack. Faith speaks life while surrounded by evidence of death. Faith acts on unseen promises while others wait for proof. It is faith that enables a person to walk above the waves while others sink beneath them. Living above circumstances is not ignoring reality. It is living in alignment with a higher reality until it manifests in the visible world. There is a serenity that comes with this way of living. When you refuse to let circumstances dictate your mood, your choices, or your expectations, you enter into a state of peace. Bills may arrive, but panic does not. News may declare crisis, but you remain calm. This peace itself becomes magnetic, drawing resources, solutions, and opportunities. People are drawn to those who radiate calm assurance. Doors open for those who are not frantic but confident. Peace not only sustains you above circumstances, it also attracts the very provision that changes them. Living above circumstances transforms obstacles into stepping stones. What others see as endings, you use as beginnings. A lost job becomes an open path to a new calling. A closed door redirects you to a greater opportunity. A financial setback becomes the fertile soil for creativity and reinvention. When you refuse to bow to circumstances, they lose their power to define you, and instead they become the material out of which your destiny is built. The world will always have challenges, cycles of lack and abundance, times of upheaval and times of calm. To wait for perfect conditions is to wait forever. But when you learn to live above circumstances, you are no longer bound by them. You can prosper in famine, grow in drought, rise in recession, and shine in darkness. You become like an eagle, soaring above storms while others cower beneath them. The storm does not vanish, but it cannot touch you at that height. To live above circumstances is ultimately to live from the inside out, not from the outside in. It is to let inner truth dictate outer experience, rather than outer experience dictate inner truth. When you anchor yourself in the eternal, the temporary loses its grip. When you stand on unshakable ground, the shifting sands of circumstance cannot move you. And when you rise in consciousness above the noise of appearances, you discover that abundance, peace, and provision have been yours all along, waiting for you to claim them.